Dr. Adrian Voss was not the kind of man who believed in the supernatural. As a head neurologist at St. Alistair Medical Institute, he had dedicated his life to science, rationality, and the workings of the human brain. To him, fear was just a chemical reaction, an illusion created by the mind. So when he received a call at 2:13 a.m. from a blocked number, whispering his name in a voice that didn't sound entirely human, he dismissed it as a prank. But then it came again. "Dr. Voss, we need you." It was barely a whisper, layered with something distorted, like multiple voices speaking at once. He hung up. His phone rang again. This time, he let it go to voicemail. A few seconds later, a notification popped up. One new voice message. Against his better judgment, he played it. Static, then a breath, and finally, a single word. "Run." His stomach clenched, but he shook it off. Just a prank. He had more important things to worry about. Then his pager buzzed. Emergency, code blue, Ward D13. That was impossible. Ward D13 had been sealed for over 10 years. St. Alistair was one of the oldest hospitals in the country. A massive, sprawling facility with over 20 floors, multiple underground levels, and wings that had been abandoned for years. D13 was one of them. A psychiatric ward, shut down after a series of incidents. Patients had claimed to see something in the mirrors. Some refused to sleep, some screamed for hours, and others disappeared entirely. The hospital eventually locked it down. No one went in. No one came out. So why was his pager calling him there now? Adrian hesitated. He could ignore it. He should ignore it. But something pulled him forward. As he made his way through the dimly lit corridors, the air grew colder. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead. By the time he reached the entrance of Ward D13, his breath was visible in the freezing air. The door should have been locked, but it wasn't. It was slightly open, a dark void beyond. He stepped inside. The stench of antiseptic and something rotting filled the air. Dust floated in the dim light. He moved carefully, his footsteps echoing. Then, a voice, weak, hoarse. "Doctor?" Adrian froze. A woman sat on a gurney in the middle of the hallway, her hospital gown tattered, her skin pale and stretched too tight over her bones. She looked starved, but it was her eyes that made his stomach drop. They were all wrong, too black, not like pupils, like endless voids, swallowing the light. "Doctor," she whispered again. He cleared his throat, forcing himself to stay calm. "Who are you? How did you get in here?" She just stared at him. Then, slowly, she lifted her left wrist. Adrian stepped closer and felt his heart stop. Her patient ID tag read, name, Eleanor S. Voss. Job, March 12, 1991. Admitted, 2015. His sister's name. But that was impossible, because Eleanor had died 10 years ago. His mind struggled to process what he was seeing. His sister was dead. She had been dead for a decade. This couldn't be real. He took a slow step back. "You're not Eleanor." The woman's lips curled into a small, unnatural smile. "Are you sure?" Then, the lights cut out. Pitch black. Silence. A chill slithered down his spine. Movement. Something dragging across the floor. Then, click. The emergency lights flickered on, bathing the corridor in a dim red glow. She was gone, but the hallway had changed. What should have been a dead end now stretched endlessly forward. An impossible tunnel that should not exist. At the far end, something stood, tall, unnaturally thin. Its head tilted, watching. Then, it moved. Not toward him, but up the walls, across the ceiling, skittering impossibly fast. Adrian turned and ran. His breath came in ragged gasps. The exit, the door, it had to be here. But it wasn't. No. No, no, no. He turned back, pulse hammering. The hallway was longer now. The walls were shifting, closing in, breathing. And that thing, it was closer. Then, he heard her voice. Adrian. His sister's voice. Everywhere. He clamped his hands over his ears. "You're not real." Laughter. Low. Guttural. Wrong. Then whispers. "We never left, Adrian." The walls bulged. Blackened, decayed hands clawed their way free. He had seconds. Then a door. At the end of the hall. A way out. He ran. His muscles burned. His lungs screamed for air. The whispers rose to a frenzy. Hands reached for him. Fingers grazing his skin. Almost there. Almost. His fingers closed around the handle. Then ice-cold fingers locked around his wrist. He turned and saw her. Eleanor. Her face inches from his. Her eyes void black. Endless. And she smiled. You shouldn't have come back. Then, she pulled him into the dark. Did you hear? Nurse Mira glanced up from her chart. Hear what? Dr. Voss. They found him in Ward D13. Mira frowned. That place has been sealed for years. Exactly. Her stomach twisted. Is he okay? A long pause. Then, a whisper. He keeps saying the same thing. Mira swallowed. What? The nurse looked at her, eyes wide. The corridor never ends.